A very good evening to all of you and welcome to a dynamic session on tech synergy for youth. We are excited to have all of you here and I'm sure you'll be enlightened by the words of our esteemed guest, Dr. Rishikesh KB. An alumnus of Delhi School of Economics, he possesses various honors including MCom, MBA, MPhil and UGC NET in Commerce and Management. He has also been an active researcher with a keen eye for innovation and development. He has published in various reputed journals under UGC Care and Scopus. He also has numerous case studies and conference presentations. He is an executive member of the Indian Economic Association and a life member of multiple professional bodies. He is on the boards of 6 institutions in Karnataka and Kerala. He is a speaker at the Indian Education Summit and mentors 4 startups. Additionally, he writes for the New Indian Express, The Hindu and Deccan Herald. Without wasting any further time, let me hand over the mic to our guest who is eagerly waiting to engage you all in some exciting content. Stay tuned into the session and we'll be awarding you with certificates of participation at the end of the particular session.
Thank you. If I have an apple and you have an orange and we decide to exchange, you get an apple and I get an orange. But if I have an idea and you have another, and then we decide to exchange, both of us gain with 2 different ideas, provided the ideas are different. But if the ideas are similar, you would find a convergence or a confluence of an idea. I believe webinars or seminars or lecture series like these are a huge platform to share and exchange a lot of ideas. And at the outset, I must thank and appreciate the confidence which the Christ online education has given to share and exchange a few ideas. And when I say ideas, it brings about change only if the ideas shared are actionable. So I have a couple of thoughts which I have kind of curated, which I believe will bring about some change in the mindset by the end of this little conversation that we are having. So the topic given to me is Tech Synergy for Youth, from startup spark to the global stage. And I'll be focusing more on the second part of the conversation because that's something which I believe I can add value to, from startup spark to the global stage. And I'll try to speak more from the context of the institution that I represent, which is the Christ University, and what is the kind of initiatives that we have done to kind of inculcate this, rather celebrate this culture of entrepreneurship in the campus among our students is what I'll try to focus more on. There's a person called Donald Rumsfeld about whom I'm not really sure whether history should remember him because there are a lot of wrong reasons why he should be remembered for. But when it comes to the strategy, when it comes to a lot of ideas that he had conceptualized more from a war context, it makes a lot of sense, and those are to be written in gold. And one of which I've shared here, he said there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. I repeat, there are a lot of things that we know that we know. There are a lot of things that we know that we do not know, and there are also things that we do not know that we do not know. Now, just try to contextualize this in the maybe in a business context or from an entrepreneur's point of view, or even from a life perspective. It actually do make sense. When an entrepreneur gets into a venture, he's actually operating on a lot of known knowns, a lot of known unknowns, and a lot of unknown unknowns, right? And he or she, no gender bias there, makes a calculated risk when they get into the idea of entrepreneurship. And so is the case in our life, when maybe on a lighter context, when we try to find a life partner, there are a lot of known knowns, known unknowns, and probably over a period of known, you also get to know there are unknown unknowns. And when the unknown unknowns become known knowns is when the kind of synergy happens. So having said that and setting the context for our discussion, by and large what I intend to discuss is how to nurture the entrepreneurial spirit, how to curate an entrepreneurial mindset by nurturing creativity and by also nurturing innovation as the spirit of among the entrepreneurs. Now, having gone through the profile of a couple of entrepreneurs and trying to understand how the mindset of an entrepreneur is, I find a huge difference in the way in which they approach their entrepreneurial idea. They're not with a fixed mindset. Now, fixed mindset is where people try to avoid challenges. They try to refuse to receive criticism or any sort of a feedback. And the focus is more about proving yourself rather than co-creating something valuable. But when it comes to a growth mindset, you find altogether a different approach towards entrepreneurship. And they look at the challenges as opportunities. They would also embrace constructive feedback. They appreciate and welcome constructive feedback. And they're also inspired by other people's success and not get annoyed or bogged down by the other people's success. And they believe in a lot of innovation, and they have a lot of clarity of concept and conviction in their idea. So how do we inculcate not just an entrepreneurial mindset, but also a growth mindset? I mean, that's also something that I'll try to explore through some of the examples which I'll be trying to decode the mindset of an entrepreneur. Having said all of this, I'll take you through 5 different examples which I found interesting. The first example is something which I came across during COVID. Now, here is a person, a very smart a gentleman from Japan. His name is Morimoto Shoji. And now he would charge absolutely nothing, or he would do absolutely nothing but charge probably around $96 for an hour. This is a story. Now, during COVID, a lot of people were ostracized, isolated, and they felt disconnected. And they wanted somebody to listen to, somebody who would be there with them to take a picture for Instagram, or probably to file their divorce, or maybe to catch butterflies in the park. And for that, he would charge $96. And he just doesn't do anything in particular, but do everything which the clients would ask him to. Now, that's one example. Now, I would say he's one of the smartest entrepreneurs that I've come across, and he's created a personal brand, because I consider him as an entrepreneur since he has created value. And that is the fundamental difference between a business person and an entrepreneur. If a business person is driven by profit, an entrepreneur is driven by value creation. And when you create value, profit would naturally follow. Now, the second example is Arunachalam Muruganathan, probably known after the movie The Padman, and he's known as the Padman of India, and his story is also quite inspirational, and this also helps us to decode what an entrepreneur thinks, or what is the mindset, what is the growth mindset which I was talking about. Now, Muruganathan is a 7th grade or 8th grade dropout, but he's a brilliant entrepreneur, and he's created a social impact. He's also created an empowerment model, because Muruganathan found that the sanitary pads which are sold by the MNCs, the actual cost of manufacturing is just 1/10 than at the price at which it is sold in the market. And he went around the villages in India and found that there are a lot of unhygienic practices, and decided to devote his rest of his life to develop a product, and he has committed that during his lifetime he want the entire country to be wearing the women to be wearing the sanitary pads that he had developed. And what he has done, what makes him an entrepreneur, is his idea is not commercialized. What he's done is he had made it accessible by keeping the idea or the technology as a free software, and he would train and empower the NGOs, train and empower the women in the rural villages and make them, so there is an employment generation that he has done, and he's not commercialized it, and therefore he's also created a larger social impact, and therefore I consider him as a classic example of being a social entrepreneur. He made low cost sanitary pad making machine, and he was one among the 100 most influential people in the world, and I believe in 2021-22. Now the third example, when I first went to Dubai along with my girlfriend, I said we need to go to the Dubai shopping mall, and I said we need to visit the Tom's footwear store. And there was a reason, because I had only read about it. I knew that there is a store, Tom's Outlet. And there's a very interesting model which the founder of Tom's had developed, Blake Bykowski. And that's what makes him an entrepreneur, the way I look at it. What he has come up with is, for every pair, the product is top notch, no compromise on the quality, but there is a larger cost which he has attached his products with. If you're buying a pair of Tom's shoes, another similar pair goes to a child who's actually in need of such a pair, and that's the model which makes him an entrepreneur, and that's the kind of a social impact and a value driven business that he has created. And it's not driven by profit, it is actually driven by a larger cause, which makes him an entrepreneur and not a business person. Now the fourth example that I have is of Sumita Ghosh, and I'm sure many wouldn't have heard about Ranga Sutra, but for sure many would have heard about Fab India. Now Sumita Ghosh had a brilliant idea. She wanted to create a community of entrepreneurs, community of artisans, handicrafts in India, but he didn't have the initial capital to start her venture. And what she did is, he collected 1,000 rupees from each of these artisans who are also now the owners of Ranga Sutra. So there is a collective responsibility of Ranga Sutra, and this is a little bit about this community. Ranga Sutra is a community owned company of craftspeople, and it's an artisans collective. Each of those artisans contributed 1,000 rupees each, and that becomes the seed fund to start this venture. And Ranga Sutra makes the products which are sold and branded by Fab India, and since they also have a tie-up with, or rather partnering with IKEA, it is also reaching global. So look at the kind of an empowerment model which this lady has thought about. An artisan collective, they own the venture Ranga Sutra, and they are making it from a regional to a national brand, Fab India. From a national brand, with the collective of IKEA, it is becoming a global rather than international brand. So that's the inspiring story of Ranga Sutra, and there are learnings from each of these entrepreneurs' journey or each of these entrepreneurs' story, and that's something which I'll try to cross connect and decode the mindset of an entrepreneur. Another an interesting gentleman is no more C.K. Prahlad, one of the pioneer in management, an Indian thinker, a philosopher. He said their real fortune lies not at the top but at the bottom of the pyramid. And he said the actual talent lies at the bottom. And of course it remained as in theory, but there is a very interesting entrepreneur who's based out of Brazil who came up with a venture called before that, let me also talk about a very interesting concept which this entrepreneur from Brazil had questioned and challenged. There is a saying, practice makes you perfect. This entrepreneur named Ricardo Semler said, there is a fundamental flaw in this statement. What he said is, what if you're practicing a wrong practice? You would end up perfecting a wrong practice. So he said, it's actually perfect practice which makes you perfect. And then he cross connects this ideology with organizations, and he was trying to understand how a lot of exploitation happens in a hierarchical structure in an organization, and he said we need to rethink the way in which the hierarchy is designed in organization. So he questioned and challenged this conventional wisdom, and he said it is perfect practice which makes an organization perfect. And believe it or not, in this organization which he started, Ricardo Semler, he started the venture called Semco. If you are working for this organization, you decide your salary, you decide your boss, you decide when to terminate your boss, you conduct the appraisal of your boss. Everything is just complete an opposite of how a traditional organization would function. And believe it or not, even today, it's one of the most profitable venture in Brazil, and he's highly celebrated as an entrepreneur who created a larger impact to people to rethink about how organization can function. He's also written a book, a brilliant book, Maverick, and I would suggest this for those of you aspiring to become entrepreneurs to read and subscribe to some of his articles. It's something amazing. Now, having said all of this, what is the sum and substance of, or rather the learning from all of these entrepreneurial stories? An entrepreneur is somebody who would creatively think and innovate. He might also sometimes find, or rather identify, the gaps in the society or in the markets and design innovative solutions, even challenge the mainstream industry. And I think Arunachalam Muruganatham's example is a classic case of how innovative and creative, despite his challenges, he became a social entrepreneur who created a social impact. Now, the second example, Morimoto Shoji, he did face a lot of criticism. He was humiliated, literally. He was boycotted. He was humiliated in the social media platforms. But there was a resilience. He had a clarity. He had a conviction of the kind of value addition he's making to his clients. And that's another quality if you look at an entrepreneur. There is a resilience. There is an amount of calculated risk taking which an entrepreneur would embrace. And that's another sort of a quality of a growth mindset of an entrepreneur. Now, the third is an entrepreneur is also having a larger vision of creating a social impact. He's socially conscious, and is also empathetic, just as how Sumita Ghosh, by creating a community, or rather a collective of artisans, made a regional, national, and then a global impact, right? Now, the fourth example, or rather the fourth trait of an entrepreneur, is that of having a larger vision, thinking beyond profit or thinking beyond immediate return, aligning with certain values, and that's what Blake McCoskey, by building that brand Tom's, what he had created. And the last, these are my way of looking at what an entrepreneur looks like, or what an entrepreneur's mindset is, or how the growth mindset of an entrepreneur works. You could agree or disagree, but by and large, some of the common traits of an entrepreneur, irrespective of the examples that I've quoted, is they also have huge leadership quality, which empowers not just themselves, but also the team. That's what you've seen with Ricardo Semler, who had questioned some of the traditional management wisdom and set up an organization which is completely different from the rest of which are operational across the globe. Yeah. So this is a little bit of an introduction to what an entrepreneur is, or how I look at entrepreneurship. Now, having said all of this, I was also trying to understand what is it that I can tell about an entrepreneur. What is the simplest definition of an entrepreneur? My way of understanding an entrepreneur, rather appreciating or celebrating entrepreneurship, is an entrepreneur is somebody who identifies a problem and offers a solution. And when you offer a solution, it creates value for their customers. And that when that value is created, profit would naturally follow. You will find that in all the examples that I had quoted earlier. Arunachalam Muruganathan was not driven by profit. He wanted to bring about a change. He wanted to bring about an empowerment, bring about a transition in the way in which management is looked at by Ricardo Semler, So was the case with Sumita Ghosh, right? So these are some examples which I think would help us appreciate and understand. Now, coming back to my institution where I associate with, I have a classic example. We have an English professor, Dr. Saji Varghese. Now, despite being an English professor, on his way back from office, he finds that these coconut tree leaves are either collected and discarded, or they are burnt. They are not used, or rather reused. Now, this gentleman had thought differently. He took a leaf and then, with a lot of research, he discovered that there is a natural glue in that leaf itself. And eventually, he also discovered that there is a potential to make a straw out of it, and which can become a substitute for the plastic straw, which is, harming the environment quite a lot, especially the water reservoir. Now, this gentleman has developed this product, and what makes him an entrepreneur is he has also not commercialized it, but he has also taught a lot of women in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu. He was an invited guest for the government of Sri Lanka, and he's training women and empowering them, employing them, and making them self-sufficient, independent, financially independent. And that's what makes him an invited speaker at a lot of forums globally. And it doesn't stop with one innovation. One of the ways which I've always appreciated and have high regard for this professor is, I always have this conversation trying to understand how does he teach entrepreneurship. So he said, I don't confine my teaching within the four walls of my classroom. I send my students out of my class, ask them to identify a problem and come back with a solution. And a lot of those solutions have eventually become either a product or got converted into a patent. And I'll show one example. Now, this is this person who would take at least 1 hour to put a white mark in the playground. Now, some of the students who were sent out by Professor Saji found that this man is struggling. So they came up with this device which would do the work in less than 10 minutes. Now, this product becomes commercialized and then it gets patented. And that's the kind of an ecosystem which our university has created, where a lot of professors who teach entrepreneurship give students hands-on experience and inculcate the spirit of entrepreneurship among our students. And I've got a lot of stories from our students. I'll just take one or two. In the interest of time, I'll only take about 1 or 2 examples. Now, you get to see a gentleman on screen. One of the most promising student whom I had way back in 2014 or 15. He comes from an African country, and it's mandated that every student, irrespective of the discipline, needs to have 85% attendance to qualify writing their mid or end semester examination. But this gentleman didn't have. And I was quite curious and wanted to know more about what brings it down to 60 or 65. So every month, I understood that he goes to a particular place in India where people go, and I'm referring to a temple, and go and shave their head. And this person would go and collect the full bunch of human hair, which is straight, and he would export it to his home country, where most of them have curly hair. And this product which he exports it there to his country comes to the market almost 10 times the price at which he would acquire it from India. Do you find the entrepreneurial, do you see the value addition that he is doing? Entrepreneurs are always like that. He would find an opportunity in all the challenges that they face, and they also add value and create new opportunities. And he also has empowered a lot of women by setting up his own venture. There are a lot of examples, but I think the last one where I have paused is another very interesting example. Tej Kankaria, currently a senior manager at the Reserve Bank of India. During his term at Christ, he went to then Forum Mall, now it is Nexus. He went there and saw something interesting, and the next day he came up with a business proposal which he wanted to present to the management. He said, Rishi sir, have you seen something at the basement of Forum Mall? People park their vehicles, go for shopping, and by the time they come back, the vehicle is kept clean. So the parking time is converted into a business time. Now he said, why not we replicate that at Christ? A lot of us don't find time, nor do we have water in the PG or wherever we are staying. So why not we replicate that model? He did submit that proposal, but because of certain other reason it didn't happen. So what I'm trying to say is, this gentleman had come up with interesting an idea, and now he is coming up with another very interesting financial model which is likely to transform just the way in which Google Pay or those kind of transactions have transformed the way in which we do transactions. So once an entrepreneur, we say this in Christ, once a Christite, always a Christite. Once an entrepreneur, we start thinking like an entrepreneur, irrespective of he being a senior manager at RBI, he continues to think like an entrepreneur and comes up with a lot of interesting ideas. There are several stories which I can curate and talk a lot about probably in some other session, but in the interest of time, let me summarize all what we have discussed. An entrepreneur is somebody who would put other people first, who would try to identify the problems that other people are facing and try to resolve by coming up with some solution, and they offer a value, and that's what makes an entrepreneur. If I can kind of decode the mindset, decode this growth mindset of an entrepreneur. Now, having said all of this, there is something which is very common among all of these people whom I have listed, whether it's Azim Premji or Arunachala Murugnatham or Elon Musk or Bill Gates. One of the questions that we've always debated is, can entrepreneurship be taught? Can it be taught in a university? Because if you look at all the successful entrepreneurs, you would find that they're all school or college dropouts. Now, they've not become entrepreneurs because of the institution that they come from. So can it be taught, or should it be taught? Now, this kept me thinking, and while we framed the curriculum at our university, we tried to understand the different models that universities across the globe are trying to practice, and we curated our own model, and that's something which I wish to present as part of this discussion. Now, we understood that institutions like Harvard or MIT, they use case studies as an experiential learning model. Organizations like Babson College USA, they would go with incubation center. Stanford, they have something called interdisciplinary and real world problem identification, and they have something like innovation lab. Organizations like INSEAD, France and Singapore, they have industry mentorship program, and like other institutions, for instance, IIM Ahmedabad, they have hackathons or pitch competitions. Now, why I'm listing out these different pedagogies which organizations across the globe, especially universities across the globe, are practicing is, we at Christ University have curated our own model, taking inspirations from all of these institutions, and that's something which I wish to present. What we have understood is, there are 5 different pedagogical approaches which universities have emphasized on. 1, experiential or hands-on learning through case studies, simulations, real startup projects. 2nd is venture incubation. At Christ, we do have Christ Incubation Center. 3rd is mentorship. We have mentorship through our alumni. We have global chapters in the Middle East, Canada, Australia, UK. So we have alumni who are entrepreneurs who would act as our mentors. We network, collaborate with them, refine our ideas. We also organize a lot of competition, send our students to universities and organizations across the country and even abroad. And then there is also an interdisciplinary approach. And this is something that we have kind of conceptualized and curated our pedagogy. And that is exactly what we found in Edgerdale's cone of experiential model. Rather than teaching through a lecture, one of the things that we've done at Christ is we completely got rid of examination. Of course, there are assessments, but there is no examination for the subject entrepreneurship. There are assessments, and those assessments are spread across in such a way that the students experience all of what I have listed, all the kind of different pedagogies that we experiment, and that's something which I'm interested to present before you, because how is it that we curate from a startup idea, taking it global? I mean, that's something which I'm trying to illustrate through what we do. Now, when a student joins Christ, the first thing that we do is we discuss what is it that we offer through the curriculum, and then we discuss and finalize through a learning contract. We enter a learning, so the first week is a 0 week. Now in the second week, we introduce the basic concepts, the content, and set the context for discussion. Yeah, so that's where we bring in a lot of case studies, small caselets. We conduct a lot of self-analysis, video analysis, quizzes, just to lay the foundation strong on entrepreneurship. Now the third stage is where the real work begins. Now the students are asked to meet an entrepreneur, conduct an interview, and submit the video of the interview, and the learning in the form of a caselet. So that's from where the experiential learning. So we're not teaching through lectures. We're sending our students to meet entrepreneurs and curate content and share it in the form of a caselet. Now that becomes the first phase. This is before the mid-semester examination, what happens in the entrepreneurship classes. Now in the second phase, it becomes more of a group assignment, where the case studies of entrepreneurs are given, and there are also guest lectures by the practitioners, the real entrepreneurs who would come and conduct workshops, seminars, online sessions, offline sessions. There are a lot of interactions, give and take, which happens between the students and the real practitioners. So that becomes the second phase. And third phase is where, from all the learnings, we slowly introduce them to how to develop a business plan, how to curate a business plan. And that's when, in different phases, we talk about how to write a business pitch, introduce the concept of design thinking, blue ocean strategy, and second, the marketing aspect, third, the HR, the finance, different tools like the Canvanizer, the Lean Stack, a lot of such online, offline platforms through which they could refine their business ideas. So they have to come up with a new business idea which gets presented in the class, and the best of the ideas are presented eventually before the real practitioners, who are either venture capitalists, who are actual entrepreneurs, and if they find it interesting, they would also kind of fund such entrepreneurial ideas. So if I can summarize the kind of entrepreneurship teaching learning practice, the first is brainstorming or idea generation. Second is where they form a team, and the same team continues where they convert their ideas into business pitch or a business proposal, which gets vetted not by the professors. Of course, we do our own screening, but is actually vetted by the practitioners, the real investors, the angel investors who would come in. And so there are different things which do happen. One, it happens in, I would say, 10 different phases. And eventually, what we're expecting is not everyone becoming an entrepreneur. Of course, if everyone becomes an entrepreneur, fair enough, we are happy. But at least everyone gains an experience of how an entrepreneur's journey is, what are their struggles, learn hands-on, learn it from the horse's mouth by interacting with the entrepreneurs through webinars, through interactions, through seminars. And that's what we have curated, taking inspirations from all the models globally that are practiced. And this has given us results as well. And I just wanted to list a few examples. One example is Dr. Chetan Shiva. Dr. Chetan is someone who had designed the first logo of the company Mindtree. And he's unlike other child. He cannot speak. He's paralyzed, and there are a lot of other physical disabilities. Despite these disabilities, he did start a venture of his own. He also got a PhD in management, and now he's also pursuing his second PhD. And the best part of that is that the venture Niti Enterprises was started in our campus, and our university has given him an office space in the central block, the 10th floor of our campus. And he's traveling globally, he's creating an impact, and is literally minting a lot of money through this venture, and is impacting the life of a lot of people and who get inspired by his entrepreneurial journey. So that is one of the ways, by giving our students some space to experiment on their ideas. That's one of the ways in which we are trying to celebrate and inculcate the culture of entrepreneurship in campus. Now the second example is Ankit Jain, an economics graduate. He completed his graduation in 2023, and what he has done and what he started doing during his graduation is went around a lot of communities in Bangalore, gated communities in Bangalore, collected waste, and he segregated and started upcycling these waste into products which are reusable. And it's not now confined to only gated communities or apartments. A lot of industry waste is collected, and even the Bangalore airport is one of his clients. Now he's creating a lot of impact in Bangalore by waste collection, segregation and upcycle. So that's another, he's someone who has gained the benefit of leveraging on the entrepreneurial idea, and has also given some he was given waiver on the mandatory attendance clause because he is creating an impact. Yeah. So that's another way of encouragement that we give to our students to promote entrepreneurship. Now the third example is Meghna, who joined our campus way back in 2013. A student of mine, now a great friend of mine. Meghna joined our campus, and she found that none of the food outlets in the campus sells eggless cakes, and she was passionate about baking, and she started making eggless cakes and started bringing to the campus. And a lot of our professors here were her first clients, and her classmates were her first clients, and he started selling cakes in one of the food outlets. They had a tie-up. Now believe it or not, today, in a span of 8 years, she is someone who got featured as the poster girl of Tanishq Jewelry for having chosen as one among the women entrepreneurs, having run a full women kitchen, got featured in the Humans of Bombay and a lot of other forums where she's an invited speaker, and she's one among the 50 young women entrepreneurs under 30 who has created an impact and was honored by the IIM Bangalore for the kind of impact and the community. I mean, she's under 30, and probably around 10-15 women are fed, or rather their families are fed by this young entrepreneur. Now that's the kind of another promotion that we've encouraged. Try to experiment their own entrepreneurial ideas in the campus. The best part of Christ is the numbers that we deal with. You would be amazed. The numbers that we deal with is 36,000 students in all the 6 campuses. So what we generally tell our students is, if you want to do a market research, do it in our campus. You get pan-Indian crowd. If you want to conduct a product research, do it in our campus. Yeah, that's the kind of encouragement and the promotion that we've been doing for people like Meghna Jain. And I've been a witness to how this idea of under 25 evolved and has now become Asia's probably one of the largest youth summit, which started while being a Christite, and this I'm talking about Anto Philip. He started this under 25 while he was a Christite, and his first venture was a huge failure. The first under 25 conclave hardly received 25 to 40 responses, But today, if you look at it, the scale at which it has grown, what is it that he had thought? He wanted to create value for youngsters. He wanted to create a unique forum where youngsters could come and celebrate their entrepreneurial ideas. And he curated this as an under 25 conclave, which is one of the most sought after business, one of the most sought after platform, which happens annually at Bangalore and several other cities. Now there are campus under 25 conclaves as well, which is happening. So these are all examples which I am quoting by the kind of encouragement that we have given for our students to experiment on their ideas. I'll just talk about one more example. I have a video to play, but I think in the interest of time, I'll skip that. Another young entrepreneur in his mid-20s, Pramod Chandrasekhar, an LLB graduate, he has found something called the last ripple. I think it was, the inspiration was from his own personal experience. He lost his pet. And what he had come up with is the ashes of the pet is planted along with a sapling, and that became his social impact project by the name Last Ripple, and it's becoming a talk of the town in Bangalore. These are the kind of examples, because of the ecosystem that we've created in our campus, that we've got to showcase. And we also do take a lot of feedback from our alumni while we curate our syllabus, and this is a short video. I would love to share this video with you later with all those who've registered for this webinar. And we take inputs before the Board of Studies. We take inputs from our entrepreneurs who are alumni, and we listen to them and curate our syllabus. It's a long video. It's a 1 hour video which I wish to skip. Now, coming specifically to the topic which was assigned to me, which is from startup spark to a global stage. What is it that we have done in our campus? And I'll talk at 3 levels. In the institution, what is it that we have done? At the institutional level, there is an incubation center, there are entrepreneurs meet, there is workshops, hackathons, seed funds, business fests, ED clubs and associations which are curated in every department. So that promotes entrepreneurships in the campus. Now, when we look at regional and national collaborations, we have tie-ups and associations with forums like EW Catalyst, FICCI, CII, and several other forums like the TIE, the ISBA, and a lot of other forums. And globally, I was talking about that earlier as well, we are networked with our alumni who are entrepreneurs. They act as our mentors for the students. And this is the kind of an ecosystem that we've created to nurture the spark of entrepreneurship that evolves from the campus and that is taken globally. So that's in a nutshell what my presentation is all about. So what we've done in the campus is we started thinking with an end in mind. And what is the end that we have? We wanted to nurture creativity. We wanted to nurture innovation. We also wanted to celebrate and inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset. And we took inspirations from global models. We also took inspirations from universities across the globe, interacted with people across the globe, and we drove our philosophy into 2 specific ideas or 2 philosophies. One is to inculcate the philosophy of Ikigai, which is a Japanese concept. Now, what exactly is Ikigai? Ikigai is to help our students find the purpose. In my OB classes, I ask this question, what is the purpose of life? And then the discussion goes around, and I would conclude the purpose of life is to have a life of purpose. Imagine, if you don't have a purpose, imagine a Sunday morning, you don't have a purpose, you don't have a purpose to get up in the morning. Now imagine a day where you don't have a purpose at all. So our objective, or rather there are 2 philosophies. One is to create a life of purpose for our students through the principle of Ikigai, which I'm sure many of you would have read. And it's driven by an intersection of 4 different principles. Help our students identify things that they love doing the most. I mean, that's what most of the entrepreneurs have done. Help our students to identify things which the world needs the most. Help also our students to identify things for which they can monetize, convert, or which they can be paid for. And then also help our students realize what is it that they are good at. I mean, that's the, or rather, if I can make it a little more specific, the intersection of what they love and what they are good at is helping them identifying the passion. The intersection of what they love and what the world needs is what we help them to convert it into their mission, and what they can be paid for and what the world needs is made as their vocation, and convert that and that into a profession. And this is the whole philosophy of Ikigai, and this is what we try to inculcate through the initiatives to promote entrepreneurship in the campus. So that's one philosophy. There's one more philosophy which is called, I'll skip in the interest of time elaborating what Ikigai is. The second philosophy is that of Miraki. Now, what exactly is Miraki? Help devote your head, heart and hand in or probably your everything into something, and leave a piece of yourself, leave a mark of yourself, leave a signature of yourself. So these are the two principles which is driven to kind of curate all our courses. One, Ikigai, and two, Miraki, to help our students leave their imprint, leave their signature in whatever venture that they take up. And that's exactly what most people who are in the creative field does. A poet does that in the poems, the artists would do that in their paintings, and we want the entrepreneurs to transfer that in their startups. So this is a Greek concept, the Ikigai is a German concept. Now, having said all of this, I wish to kind of wrap up this whole discussion. We started off decoding the mindset of an entrepreneur. I took you through several examples and was trying to understand the growth mindset, or probably the different ways or the approaches of an entrepreneur. And then I took examples of various, or rather I raised this question whether entrepreneurship can be taught. I mean, that's something, if you're skeptical about it, and a lot of our exercise would go futile. But we need to have clarity, and that's what we got, drawing inspirations from universities across the globe. And we've curated our own model, and we've started fetching results through the kind of examples that I've quoted. And I hope some of these models would help individuals and even institutions to promote entrepreneurship in your organizations. So what we have also done is, it's not just in BBA or BCom program that we are promoting. We are trying to promote entrepreneurship through all of the courses. We want MCA students to also think like an entrepreneur, and that's the way in which we have curated our courses. I also have a few suggestions before we wrap up our discussion. If you're really keen about starting a venture, one of the things that I would suggest is to read a lot, listen to a lot of entrepreneurs, listen to a lot of podcasts, and these are some of the books which I've always recommended my students. One is a must-read is 0 to 1, High Growth Handbook, The Hard Things About the Hard Things, and there are a lot of other, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and even Blue Ocean Strategy are some of the books which I would recommend, highly recommend for the students and aspiring entrepreneurs to read and understand, because it gives you a lot of perspectives. And a common thing that you would find in a lot of entrepreneurs are that they're all good readers, they're all good listeners. Similarly, some other suggestions, if you're looking at Indian stories, probably you can listen to the Ranveer Show, the Inspiring Talks with, recently I gave a podcast with Nitin Kamat's university. They have their own university. So there are a lot of such networking platforms, and there are a lot of such podcasts which are available, which I think you can subscribe and you should listen to, because these are all life lessons which are distilled into pure wisdom, which comes for probably half an hour of your listening, is what can bring about a lot of perspective change. So on this note, I think I'm not really sure how far I've done justice to the topic, but I believe I've certainly created some sort of I would say a cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a term that we use in marketing, which is like if there is a mismatch in what you expected and what you got. I think my purpose is served, because if you've learned everything through this webinar, there ends the learning. But if it has triggered some thoughts, some ideas which you would want to go back and read, discover, reflect, then I think this interaction was fruitful, and I'm assuming that there has been some amount of cognitive dissonance that I've left in this conversation. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of my thoughts, some of my ideas. I would like to appreciate all the viewers. I would also thank the Christ online courses, which is launched this year, and the entire team, the entire crew here who had made this possible. Thank you once again, and we can stay connected. I'm available over a phone call or probably through LinkedIn or several other forums. So let's continue this conversation. I'm more than happy to share my time, my ideas with you. Thank you.
Well, that was indeed an engaging session. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful time.
Thank you.
And at Christ University, we always strive for excellence in service. And as part of our continued perseverance for academic excellence and innovation, we have launched an online education platform. We are proud to announce that we are offering 7 transformative online programs: BCom, BCA, MCA, MA English, MA Applied Economics, and MSc Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. Each course is designed to blend academic excellence with real-world opportunities and industry-ready skills. Do check out what we have on offer and join us to transform your lives for a better tomorrow. Now, we are definitely love to hear from all of you. This is your time to clarify your doubts, and I'm sure Dr. Rishikesh would be happy to guide you. Kindly type in your comments in the chat box and we'll be going through it one by one.
Oh, here we have a question. How is entrepreneurship different from a business? And I think this is, I would say there is not a thick line, but a very thin line of a difference. Well, it's more in terms of the mindset, more in terms of the way in which you approach your business. If you're driven by profit, let's say there are a lot of textile shops in the commercial street. You find that everyone is making money, and you also start another venture, a similar textile shop. You're only a business person because your interest is to make money. Whereas, if your interest is to create value for somebody or impact somebody by the kind of innovation that you've come up with, or by the product that you come up with, you're thinking more like an entrepreneur. So there is a very thin line of a difference. One is driven mostly by profit, whereas the other one, I'm not saying that not every entrepreneurs aren't business persons. I would say every entrepreneur might be a business person, but not every business person is an entrepreneur. I mean, that's in short. I can summarize or rather address this question this time. And it's a long discussion. We can have a very lengthy conversation on this. But if you're interested, we can have an offline conversation as well. I'm not sure if I've addressed this question, but I think that's my take on it for the time being. So there's another question. If we take an initiative to begin with a small startup as per our interest, how do we balance this with our academics? I mean, I can relate this with a question which I had to address recently. A student came to me and asked, sir, which elective should I opt for my master's? She's in her final year of graduation. I said, who knows you better than yourself? I mean, do you like marketing? I don't know whether she likes marketing. Only she knows. I mean, that is exactly the response which I would suggest you. I don't know what your entire academic life is. How do you spend your time? And therefore, there's no one solution which can fit for all. I need to have a little more closer conversation, understand, your entire, probably your life's, how you spend your time, and then probably suggest something. And it depends and varies to people. Again, I would suggest a one-on-one conversation on this. And there is no one solution which fits for all. One size doesn't fit for all. And therefore, I would prefer to skip that question. There's one more question. My question is about managing a career in IT as well as starting a business on the side. Would you recommend focusing on either one? Any suggestions on how to go about it? I think, in fact, today we had a conversation exactly on these lines. A lot of IT employees today find prospects in AI. And I mean, when I say I represent also, I'm the Associate Director for the Institutional Partnership, Internship and Alumni Connect. And we end up conversing with a lot of corporate heads, CHROs, the founders. And what they've said is, today people are open to experiment. And therefore, they are inculcating this concept of intrapreneurship in their, within their work premises. Like, they give, a lot of employees are given freedom to experiment on ideas on which they want to work on, using the resources. And I think you are well aware of this 2080 principle of Google, which I don't know, for some reason they had continued. More than 50% of the profit with Google is currently generating is out of that 20% time, extra time, which was given to their employees to work on projects of their interest. So they did inculcate the idea of entrepreneurship, and that is fetching them results. And a lot of organizations are thinking on those lines. And in fact, individuals have also started thinking. Today, we had a conversation with Mr. Clifford Mohanpai, the Vice President HR. We also had a similar conversation with the head HR of Bosch, and both of them had, and we're sharing the same thought. They are giving their employees an opportunity, or rather the flexibility to experiment on ideas of their interest, because that is going to be the future. Job market has become uncertain, and the geopolitics have made it more unpredictable. With AI coming in, it has become, job itself has become quite redundant, and there is a lot of layoff, and people are exploring and experimenting with, and I would certainly encourage and entertain, because I think that's the general trend across industries, and managers are also encouraging such an ecosystem to be built within their work premises. So I think you should experiment while you're working to start your own venture. Okay, there's another question. How should we balance our focus between preparing for a corporate job and working on developing a startup idea? What mindset and approach would you recommend? I would suggest a growth mindset, which I had tried to kind of decode in my little presentation. Try experimenting with a lot of ideas, because so this is a time where you can experiment. I remember one of my good friend, who was also my colleague, who started a venture called Levon. He is the first chef to have got a PhD, Dr. Evan. And he, while being a professor at Christ, he said, I'm quitting my job. And I was surprised, because he was in his mid or early 30s. And I was surprised that he's quitting a job. He said, Rishi, this is a time I can take risk. And if it doesn't work, I certainly do have an option to come back and work as a professor here. And he took up that risk, and believe it or not, Levon Academy pastry is one of the most sought after across the globe. If you look at the ranking of the baking industry, baking institutions, they get featured in most in the top 10 institutions across the globe. And they're now branching out, and it's probably in a span of next 2 to 3 years, it's going to become 100 crore worth of a company. So this is the right time to experiment on ideas. And this is the right campus, I would say, pan-Indian audience to probably do a market research, to conduct, understand the sentiments of, I in my presentation, I had mentioned about that. 36,000 students are there. If you want to conduct a sentiment analysis, if you want to conduct a market research, where else would you find such free resource? If you do a trial run about a product, and there are different forums, platforms which would encourage you to present and pitch your business ideas, your entrepreneurial ideas. And I would say this is the right time. There is no better time than starting while you are in campus. And a lot of examples. Under 25 started while he was in the second year of Moshi, and they are employing almost 150 employees. They have branched out to Mumbai. They have an office in Gurgaon. They started while they were in the second year. Just Shawarma, which is having 16 outlets, while in the second year of graduation he started this venture. So this is the right time. Since you said you are in the first year of graduation, there's no better time than at least to start thinking, brainstorming ideas, and we are there. And professors are there, entrepreneurs are there, mentors, our alumni startup ventures are there for you to be mentored. Okay, one last question probably. What should be the first step to entrepreneurship to journey? I would say it is to start the journey. That's the first step. Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you everyone for being such great participants. Thank you, sir, for sharing some of your valuable time with us. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed the session because I really did. And sir had some inspiring words for all of us. And we'd love to see all of you back again with the same energy and the same curiosity. Also, do not forget to check out our online degree programs, which proves to be an exciting opportunity to boost your futures. We'll get back to you guys soon with your certificates of participation. And thank you once again. And with that, we'll wind up for today.
Thank you.